So far in Flash, you have used drawing tools to create your animations. What you need to realize is that you can also use photographs and images to animate. So you are going to need to do, I have Photoshop open first. You're going to need to take a photo of yourself. I used one of my niece. It needs to be from head to toe, full body shot, okay? And you need to go into Photoshop, use your selection tools to get rid of the background. Okay, so you want to make a clean selection and then delete the background so that you see the transparent checkerboard. Save it as a Photoshop file. Then I went and got a picture off of the internet of a bird, and I did the same thing. Got rid of the background. You can use a bird. If there's something else that interests you, you can use that too, but I'll let you decide what it is you want to use. And you may have a photo of something you want to use as well. Okay, so both of those are saved as Photoshop files, so I'm going to go ahead and quit Photoshop. And I am going to start a new ActionScript 3.0 file in Flash. And remember, if your excuse me, if your welcome screen does not appear, you can always go to File and New, and you'll see the same thing there. All right, so first thing I want to do is I want to set this up classic, like I've been working with the others, and that way you can see where things are. I want to set up my stage so that it fits in the window. And the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to import to a library, okay? And it's important to import things to a library because then you can decide how they go on the stage. And there we go. And I'm going to find my two Photoshop files. And I'm going to pull those in. Notice that the checkerboard background is there, okay? And I can click OK, and I can click OK on the other. Now, your library is over here docked with your properties. If you don't see it, you know that you can find it under the window menu. And I do want you to also notice the symbol here. The way this was imported, it imported it actually as a graphic symbol. So we don't have to do any converting to symbols. So I'm going to drag the person to the stage, and I guess I'm going to have to zoom out so that I can transform. Remember that when you transform something, you need to hold your Shift key down so that it stays in proportion. Okay, you don't want to make somebody bigger or smaller than they really are. Sometimes, whoops, see, I just did that and I didn't mean to. Sometimes that happens and people get upset. All right, so I have her filling the stage on one layer. I'm going to go ahead and name this layer Girl. And I'm going to lock it for right now because I'm going to create another layer, and I'm going to go ahead and call that one Bird. And I'm going to drag in the bird, which is huge. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit more again. And I'm going to resize that using my transform tool, holding down the Shift key. And then once I do, I can fit in window so I can see it. And maybe a little bit more. Right about there. All right. So what I'm going to do first is I know in my properties, I have my frame rate. I'm going to go ahead and set my frame rate at 20 frames per second. And I'm just doing that because of the math. The higher the frame rate, the cleaner your animation is, the more lifelike it is. The lower it is, the more choppy it becomes. I am going to unlock that girl layer, and I am going to, if I want this animation to last for 5 seconds, then I can put my cursor in frame 100 and I can hit F5 which will insert frames. It's not inserting a keyframe, it's simply inserting frames, which means that this object in this keyframe will stay here in this position for 100 frames or 5 seconds. Okay? And then I'm going to lock it. And then I'm going to go to the bird. Okay? Now, the bird is, what we want it to do is we want it to actually fly around her, in front of her and behind her, making it look like it's actually three-dimensional. Okay? So what I want to do first is I want to draw a path for the bird to follow. There's different ways to draw paths. You can draw it with the pen tool. You can draw it with the pencil tool. You can also draw it with an oval tool, which is what I'm going to use. Now, in this instance, my oval needs to have a stroke. The color of it is irrelevant, but it needs to have no fill. It also needs to be drawn in merge drawing mode, not object. And that's, remember, when it's light gray. If it's dark gray, it's object. And I'm going to go ahead and draw a kind of a big oval right here. Okay? And I want to use my transform tool to rotate it a little bit because I just want it to, whoops, I want the bird to kind of move at an diagonal. If you need to resize it, you can resize it. There we go. Okay. And then I will actually use my eraser right here. And I am just going to erase a small little section. Now, if it was in object drawing mode, you would not be able to erase that small section. Okay? So that's part of how you know what kind of mode it's in. All right, now what I need to do is I need to position this bird, and I'm going to position it right here at the start of where I want this path to be. And you probably will notice that as you move it, it tries to snap into place. That's a good thing. Let it snap into place. Next, let's go ahead and double click on your path and let's cut it. You can use keyboard shortcut Command X to cut. And then we can put a motion tween on our bird. Okay? Now, it only went out to 20. I'm not really 100% sure why. So we are going to make sure that it lasts the same amount of time as the girl. So I am going to hit F5 to insert frame out there. That's just so that they're lasting the same amount of time. I'm going to put my playhead back on 1, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to control click on my stage and choose paste in place. Don't choose just paste, it's going to paste it anywhere. It needs to be paste in place. And notice now that there is a path here. Okay? Now, if you get lucky, sometimes it automatically follows the path. However, sometimes you have to go to the last keyframe and you have to position your object at the end of that path. Okay? So I got lucky that it followed it all the way through here. Okay? Now, a couple of things that you should notice about this. Number one, when the bird gets here, all of a sudden it starts flying backwards, which is a little bit abnormal, don't you think? So what I want to do is I want to find where it does start. So right about here, actually I'll just go to 50. I'm going to control click on frame 50 and I'm going to insert a keyframe, all. And then I'm going to do the same thing on 51, insert keyframe, all. And now on 51, I can click on the bird and I can go to modify, transform, flip horizontal, and now the bird flies forward at the top, and then it flips around and flies forward back to the end. Okay? So that works pretty nice. Now, the other thing I want you to notice is the bird just flies in front of her. Okay? Which is kind of cool anyway. However, we want it to have the illusion of 3D. And so we want the bird to fly behind her at some point. I want the bird to fly behind her at the top, where it doesn't fly in front of her face. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to lock that bird layer, and I'm going to drag the girl layer to the new layer icon. That made a copy of it. And I'm going to drag that girl copy to the top. Okay? Now, I am going to get my rectangle tool. And actually, I'm going to unlock that bird layer real quick so I can see where my path is. All right, so we basically want right here, this is going to be the cutoff point here. Okay? Now, what I'm going to be using here is called a mask. And it's kind of similar to Photoshop in how you can apply a mask to something so that you can see through an area. All right. So I am going to draw a rectangle. The color of it is irrelevant because this is just serving as a mask, the area that we want to see through. Okay. This is the area we want to see through. It doesn't really matter if it is a merge or object, okay? Now what I need to do is I need to control click on that top layer where I drew the rectangle and, whoops, right up here. And I need to choose mask. Okay, so what that does is if I hide this bottom girl layer, see what it does? All that's visible on this top layer is her legs, the bottom part, okay? And the reason that's good is because as we hit that scrubber, the bird has to fly. We want it to fly behind her, or sorry, no, in front of her. I did it backwards. I wanted it on the opposite side. Let me check it. Yeah, I want the bird to fly behind her in the back at the top. So actually let me disable this mask, okay? And I want to move this mask after I unlock the layer. I want to move it to the top, okay? And I need to transform it so that it covers. Okay. Now, let me try masking it. Okay, so it flies behind and then in front. I need to disable that again. Whoops, did I? And I need to, already forgot, hang on. Behind. Okay, so this part here, I actually have to reshape it. So I will need, let's see if that works. Behind it and in from, okay, almost. Okay, but the nice thing is that you can use this sub-selection tool to reshape. And I haven't applied the mask yet back on because I just want to make sure. And I need to put this one up just a little bit more. One more time. All right, I think that should be working. So now I can put my mask back on. And now it's going to fly behind and in front. Okay, so we're going to save this as 1 underscore last name underscore 3D orbit. You'll save it into your flash file. Remember that command return publishes your Swift file. And to make this even better, please go ahead and give this a stage color of something. Ooh, not that though. How about that? Okay, looks good.